They returned, not once, but many times, to the same threshold. Welcome to the Charon Files. The stories you are about to hear are testimonies from living witnesses of what moves beyond understanding, of what refuses to be explained. Each of them stood at the edge of what is known, and looked into what lies beyond it. My name is Charon, Ferryman of the Dead, the one who waits at that edge. What follows is what they brought back. May they prepare you for your own future encounters. There are moments when the veil thins, when the steady hum of everyday existence gives way to a sharper, more resonant frequency. We perceive what lies beyond the immediate, whether through technological augmentation or the raw shock of transition. These instances reveal a hidden feedback loop, a subtle echo within the fabric of what we call now. The repetition, the slight variations, they feel less like coincidence and more like an intentional design. It is in these spaces, at the very edge of our known world, that the true nature of reality can sometimes be glimpsed, often in a form both unsettling and profound. Scott, in Pittsburgh, Kansas, recounts an uneventful start to a night hunt where he employed specialized scopes and waited for activity.
I'm a hunter. I like to hunt wild boar specifically. Though I have been deer hunting and have been known to get a turkey for Thanksgiving, I mostly hunt boar. For those of you that don't know, boar are a big problem in the United States. A sow can have 2 litters a year, and it's not uncommon for a litter to consist of 10 or more pigs. Given that pigs eat anything and everything, it's not hard to see why the Department of Fish and Wildlife makes it legal to hunt them with almost no restrictions. In my state, it's illegal to hunt most large mammals with night or thermal vision scopes, with the exception of boar and coyote. I'd been saving for a year, mostly fun money. It's hard to explain to your wife that a scope that cost literally twice as much as the rifle I was mounting it on was worth it. But I did it. I took it to a range and sighted it in. There was an area that was peppered with boar activity that I knew would be perfect for a night hunt. It was easily accessible with my truck, with easy-to-find spots that I could set up in that overlooked a large, easy-to-navigate clearing. The night started uneventful, mostly me tinkering with my new toy, cycling through the settings. I was a little impatient. I'd spotted multiple deer, but they were out of season. And like I mentioned earlier, my current setup wasn't legal for deer. I moved to another spot I'd seen days earlier that probably wasn't much better than my first, but it gave me something to do and a new angle to look around with my new scope. After an hour or so of glassing the area, it dawned on me. This spot doesn't have much animal activity at all, no rabbit or owls. The deer that I'd seen were hundreds of yards from where I was. Why was this pocket of land so dead at night but lively in the day? I'd set up around 10 p.m., and it was about 2 a.m. when I started to think about packing up, maybe setting up a target before I left and taking some practice shots. I heard a crunch come from the direction I came from before. I panned my scope over and saw the silhouette of a small bear pushing through the bushes. It's important to note that my scope isn't exactly night vision. It's a thermal scope, kind of like a black and white version of what you see in the Predator movies. I adjusted my range and zoomed in a little. I remember jolting a little when I saw that it wasn't really a bear, it was a man. Because he was so low and hunched over, I thought I was looking at a young bear. Is that a game warden? It couldn't be. I would have seen the headlights coming up the road from where I was perched. And where could he have walked from? I was 30 miles away from anything and on public lands. I was about to call out when I adjusted my sights and noticed he was naked. No shoes, pants, or anything. I remember being disturbed by his movements, like a squirrel or something. Twitchy and grabbing at the foliage, sniffing around and palming the tree. Was that my tree? The one I'd been leaning against earlier? The thought terrified me. Could he smell me? Then he did something I still have nightmares about today. He squatted and placed his hands in the dirt between his feet and stared straight up like a dog mid-howl, and I heard it. A voice coming from that direction, a very compelling female voice. "Help! I'm lost!" There was a long pause, but neither of us moved a muscle. The center of my sights was trained at the dirt in front of his feet. I couldn't bring myself to aim directly at another person. It went against everything I'd been taught about firearms. Were they lost? Was this some guy that had gone crazy out here? Why was his voice so feminine? "Help! Please! I can't walk!" the voice called out. That's when I called bullshit. Not only could he walk, when I first saw him, he was traversing the land with ease for a naked person, so good I mistook him for a bear. That's a fucking trap. This guy is trying to lure me to him with a damsel in distress routine. Luckily, the lack of activity before had caused me to pack up most of my gear. I think I may have left behind a hat and a sitting pad, but I didn't give a shit in that moment. I took my eyes off him for a moment to get my pack on. I buckled my chest strap and scrambled for my rifle. To my horror, he was in the same position, but his face was staring in my direction, and I swear I saw a smile. The thermal scope has an effect that makes animals' eyes appear white. How the hell had he heard me get up and put my gear on? He must have easily been 150 yards away. "Fuck off!" I screamed in that direction. He stood upright, and it hit me how tall and skinny he was. Easily 6 feet and very lean. He took a couple of long strides in my direction, and I instinctively sent a round sailing above his head into the tree line. He was freaky as hell, but he hadn't really threatened me. What would I tell the cops? I was unwilling and unready to shoot someone. He stopped dead in his tracks and hunched down on all fours. "The next one will fuck you up, go away!" He stayed on all fours, and this time I had my sights trained on the center of him. His eyes were just above the grass like a large cat or something. I was trying to stop my trembling and knew that my voice had cracked a little on that last warning. I was terrified. That standoff probably only lasted a minute or two, maybe less, but it felt like forever. In an instant, he bolted left towards the tree line opposite the road. So much for not being able to walk, I could barely keep him in my scope. He was moving so fast. He disappeared into the brush, and I sent another bullet sailing high in his direction. I racked another round and tried to pocket that mag and swap for a fresh one, but I dropped it and didn't bother looking for it. I wasn't far from my truck, and I wanted to get out of there. I could hear him in the distance, yelling in this weird sound that could have been a laugh or a cry. I scrambled up the trail and arrived at my truck breathless. I tossed my gear into the cab, but kept the rifle in the passenger seat and sped off. For the longest time, I told that story from the perspective of having spotted some deranged person living off the land like some kind of caveman. I reported it to Fish and Game, but all they did was scold me for hunting at night alone, never received an update. It wasn't until I told this story at a camping trip that my nephew told me about wendigos, rakes, and skinwalkers. My story scared the piss out of him because the spot we were camping was technically the same forest I'd seen the bastard, just 50 miles east of it. He was so spooked, his mom, my cousin, had to take him home. She was really pissed. I've gone down the rabbit hole on these scary stories. I'm not saying what I saw definitely was a wendigo or a skinwalker. I'm saying that if such a thing exists, I may have dodged quite the bullet that night. Or maybe it was just someone being Donnie Thornberry in the middle of the night.
From Everett, Washington, Anthony shares a harrowing account of dying multiple times, experiencing himself as a ball of light flying through a dark tunnel, and fighting against his return to this plane.
I got shot 7 times. 7! Should have been more, but bad aim helped. I died at least 3 times, that's clinically. What happened during that time was pretty intense. I am going to try and sum it up in a few paragraphs, but words do not really do it. Let's begin. I saw myself from an outside perspective flying through a dark tunnel. I was a ball of light though, like energy. I was flying super fast. This is all I could recollect for days, me flying through this dark tunnel but nothing more. I was having flashes of what was soon to become full memory, but I pushed them aside as just the morphine messing with my head. On the 3rd day I was in the hospital, a surgeon came in and asked me if I remembered waking up after they shocked me and pumped me full of adrenaline. I had no recollection at all. He said that I came back, went back down, then came back again screaming, "No! No! Let me go!" I still did not remember. He asked me again in a different tone, telling me he had seen it before and was curious. He said they had to restrain me, even though I was shot twice in the chest and had a jaw and shoulder in pieces. I was fighting hard for something. As it started to come back, I denied remembering anything again, because I did not want to sound crazy. I am not crazy. After the tunnel, I was all of a sudden in the most beautiful blue water I had ever seen. I describe it like a coloring book blue. A shade of blue that only a child might know. When was the last time you played with crayons? On each side was grass that was just as beautifully colored as the water. There were people lined up on both sides. Though I did not pay attention to them much, I will never forget the smiles and the love I felt radiating from every direction, especially right in front of me. At the end of the water was the most beautiful light I had ever seen. A sun you could stare directly at, so to speak. With all of my heart, I had to get to it. Like a child loves candy, I needed it. I do not know why, but it was my entire life wrapped up into one mission: get to this beautiful light. It gets blurry here, but I remember being right there in front of it, feeling an ecstasy no person on earth can explain unless you have experienced it. There is not a word in the English language that explains it. Apparently they shocked me, I came up, went back down. That part one kind of have a recollection of Chaliev. It was then that God spoke to me. It hit me right in the chest, the words did. He said something along the lines that, "It is not your time," or "I am not ready." It was not words, it was energy being passed from him to me. So the second time the surgeon asked, it came back, quickly. Everything that happened. I remember not wanting to leave. I remember the love, the light, the ecstasy of what home really feels like. The fight I put up, how dare them take me from there. Next time you leave work, a friend's, a restaurant, and say you are going home. Just remember that while home is where the heart is, you are not home yet. You will all inevitably see, eventually, and it is nothing to be afraid of. When we cry at a funeral, that is us being selfish that we did not do this or that. The person you are crying for is yourself. The person that passed did just that, passed the test of life, and is now full of more love than you can imagine. Be happy for them and pray the day you will see them again.
A profound out-of-body journey is shared by Alice of Mesquite, Nevada, detailing travel through a luminous tunnel and a complete review of her lived existence.
The very first thing I recall, I was in complete darkness. I heard my own voice ask, "But what happens after that?" Instantly, I was flying through a tunnel of color and lights, incredibly fast. It wasn't straight. It had turns, curves, loops. I was terrified. Eventually, I realized I wasn't in control. Something was guiding me. I looked down, realizing I had no body. I was still me, incorporeal. The tunnel continued until I saw a black dot, an end. I popped out into instant floating space. In front was a huge orb of yellow or gold light, like liquefied sun. A band of light encircled it, like Saturn's ring. Bluish-purple, lightning-like things connected the orb to its ring. I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't malevolent. Tiny orbs of light popped out of endless tunnel ends all around me, curving around the main orb. I realized I must be a tiny orb too. These tiny orbs were stationary, until some moved to the outer band of light. A strong pull drew me to join. As I neared the band, I was locked in place. I discovered I had my body back, but it felt almost like a hologram. And then a scene formed. It was me as a toddler. I watched every second of every day I've lived, in perfect clarity. Perfect total recall made me realize my brain couldn't do this alone. That's when I felt a presence join me, which I call the voice. I never saw them, but felt them, and they communicated telepathically. From this presence, I felt only love, kindness, empathy, no judgment, and truth. My whole life played in super fast forward. Watching my lifetime wasn't like a movie. It was like being back in the original moment as an invisible other. It slowed to emphasize every unkind or hurtful act. I watched myself grow, seeing how my actions negatively affected others, creating a ripple effect. My misdeeds hurt so many more people, so much deeper than I ever realized. Then it showed all the good I could have done. Honestly, I felt indescribably low, like the biggest piece of human garbage scum. The people I hurt most were my closest family. Watching these fights in perfect clarity, feeling through my siblings' eyes too, was gut-wrenching. I was on my knees, sobbing, screaming, "I didn't know. I'm so sorry." I blocked the presence, ashamed. Eventually, the presence pushed past my blocking and said I was being very hard on myself. It said, "Nothing you ever did was unforgivable. You're being very unkind to yourself. Nothing anyone has ever done has been unforgivable. Stop being so unkind to yourself. There's still much to see. Are you ready to let go of the pain?" I felt no judgment, only love and compassion. I knew it was true. I agreed to continue. My lifetime started over, showing how every unkindness was linked to someone being unkind to me first. Pain spreads like a cancer, a contagion. We have responsibility for hurting others, but it's often because we were hurt first. We can stop the cycle. Knowing this is the first step. I understood most of my misdeeds weren't original to me, like a baton passed. That made me feel much better. I wasn't just a rotten monster. Then we started again, emphasizing all the good or kindness I had done. Kindness and love are also a contagion. moving forward, passing to others. The ripple effect for good, seeing seemingly unimportant things, like a forgotten compliment or a smile, had a huge positive effect. I was crying again. The voice asked if I understood how my good and bad affected so many, if I had learned. I had, so it told me to continue. I then fully joined and melded into the outer band of light. I was now plugged into one main consciousness. This consciousness was all living things, all connected as one. All lifetimes of all living things that had ever lived and died on Earth were at my command. Information played out holographically on screens. Absorbing this love and knowledge was evolving me back to being an energy being. I never forgot, me. Our personal consciousnesses don't change, we just get more advanced. Information was instantly available. There was a moment of pure happiness, realizing, hey, I'm back home again. I understood this is where we all come from. We're one curious being. The most profound part, once I melded into the band of light, all guilt, anxiety, fears, sadness, depression, addiction, traumas, all negativity dissolved. I felt weight lift off me. It was absolute euphoria. I'll never forget that feeling of being clean and released from my restrictive human form. It was an indescribably amazing feeling, and I was free to stay here at home as long as I wanted. I noticed other new arrival orbs. The orb beside me, a stranger, told me his name used to be Frank. He died a little before I did, and wasn't a very nice human, but was happy to be back. I thought, even very bad people come here. Is that fair? Frank told me it is fair because they have to own up to themselves before rejoining consciousness. Once they join, we become one. I then wondered, are my family members here? Just when I thought about looking for them, the voice interrupted. It warned me that the longer I stay, the more my old life would become insignificant. I remembered my children and disconnected. I did not want to go back. If not for my children, I would have happily stayed. I was assured I would come back when I die. I asked, what about the really, really bad people? The Hitlers, serial killers, and child molesters? The voice told me to see for myself. I went to an orb watching his deeds and melded with him. He was shown, with no detail spared, how his horrible actions affected lives, and the ripple effect. He saw his evil deeds from his own and the victim's perspective simultaneously. It was indescribably horrifying. I caught sporadic thoughts. Have to make it right. But I'm dead. Can never make it right. Too late. The voice kindly told the man to move forward. But he wouldn't. He was in his own hell. Still, the presence didn't judge him. The voice told me, stop judging him. But after what I'd seen, I was disgusted and angry. Then the voice sharply told me, stop judging him. He is you. The voice reminded me he and I come from the same source, that he was a part of me. We are one in the beginning and in the end. I asked if the voice was God. It chuckled. I thought you said you understood. It said, no, I'm not God. You're God. That frog is God. We are one. We are God. The voice told me we can stay here at home for as long as we want. Forever if we wanted. But we can leave to start a new life too, detaching from the source consciousness to be born as something new. I felt I was only at the entrance, a transitional hub, with even more amazing things beyond. I started towards the tunnels but hesitated, sad to be going back. The present said, I know, but you'll be back when it's time. I don't recall going back through the tunnel. I just woke up. That was a gift. This was my most world-rocking, mind-blowing experience. I don't personally fear death anymore. I tried to be a good person, hoping for more good deeds than bad. I'm confident in my decision to share this, even though I still wonder why my experience sounds so much like a near-death experience when I didn't have one. I'm looking forward to digging deep into NDEs and OBEs.
These accounts illuminate the fragile boundary between the physical and the incorporeal, revealing how easily one may slip from the familiar into the profound unknown. The names of the witnesses have been changed to maintain anonymity. If what you have heard tonight mirrors something you have experienced, leave your story in a comment below and we will include it in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe. You wouldn't want to miss